Pay attention to these images. A blonde woman is in a restaurant. She is Sarah Tinoco Araújo, married, mother of 2 children. Beside her is her lover, unidentified so far. The images capture everything: a heated kiss, exchanges of affection, closeness, and an intimacy that could only have been built after months of interaction. After dinner, both are caught walking hand in hand, as if they were doing nothing wrong. However, this footage would seal one of the greatest tragedies recorded in the year 2026. Because the one recording all these moments was a private detective, hired by Sarah's husband, Thales Naves Alves Machado, a secretary of the city of Itumbiara, in the countryside of Brazil. And upon seeing these images, Thales did something that shocked even the most hardened investigators. At the height of his anger, he murdered the couple's 2 children and then took his own life. On February 11th, the city of Itumbiara, in Goiás, was overtaken by news no one imagined hearing. Thales Alves Machado, then a municipal secretary, took the lives of his own children inside the family residence. Until that moment, he was known as a present father, the kind who made a point of documenting every moment alongside his children on social media. Birthdays, simple outings, religious celebrations, and even small everyday gestures. The public image built over the years was that of a man devoted to his family and committed to his city. And that is precisely where the question arose, echoing not only among residents but across the entire country. How could someone who displayed so much affection become the protagonist of a tragedy of this magnitude? In this video, I will reconstruct the events, present who the people involved were, and analyze the elements that may have contributed to such an impactful outcome. So take a moment to show your support here on the channel, because what you are about to hear goes far beyond a headline. It is a story full of layers, details, and contradictions. The case quickly gained national attention. Crime shows, news portals, and social media profiles began sharing fragmented information, much of it without context. At first, little was known about what had motivated the incident. There were no clear explanations, only speculation. However, days later, video recordings and accounts began to circulate, helping to piece together a more complete picture of what may have led Thales to act that way. And those are precisely the points we will discuss here. Before anything else, we must remember who the greatest victims in this story were: 2 brothers who had their entire lives ahead of them. Miguel Araújo Machado was 12 years old and studied at Escola Gabarito. Friends and classmates described him as an ordinary, outgoing boy who enjoyed technology, spent time on his phone, talked with friends, and maintained a typical preteen routine. He also frequently visited his grandparents, maintaining a close relationship with his mother's side of the family. The younger brother, Benicio Araújo Machado, just 8 years old, followed a similar path. He also attended school, had his friends, enjoyed mobile games, and shared simple moments with his brother, such as watching videos and playing inside the house. They were children living in an apparently stable reality, with access to good education, a comfortable structure, and active family involvement. Both were sons of Thales Alves Machado, 40 years old, and Sarah Araújo, who was between 38 and 39. There is some discrepancy in the reported information. The couple had been together for about 15 years, building a trajectory that blended family and politics. Sarah is the daughter of Dion José de Araújo, mayor of Itumbiara from a União Brasil party, which placed Thales in a strategic position within the municipal administration. Itumbiara is a city of approximately 110,000 inhabitants, known for its regional relevance in southern Goiás. Within this political context, Thales held the position of government secretary and was seen as one of the mayor's trusted names, who besides being his superior, was also his father-in-law. In public interviews, Dion repeatedly highlighted Thales' technical capacity and firm posture, mentioning his ability to articulate and his contribution to important projects of the administration. In a recent podcast, the mayor even stated that Thales was young but extremely prepared, someone who demonstrated confidence in decisions and ease in dialogue to bring benefits to the city. Many interpreted those statements as a clear indication that he was being prepared for a new step in his political career. Behind the scenes, there was already talk of a possible candidacy for state representative in that year's elections. In other words, the scenario that was taking shape was one of ascent. Active social media, constant presence at inaugurations, public events, religious celebrations, and community gatherings. The post showed a smiling man, surrounded by his children and his father-in-law, reinforcing the image of family stability and commitment to traditional values. The family lived in a high-end condominium in the city. According to information later released, Sarah was not at home when everything happened. She was traveling. This detail further increased the impact of the case, because there was no public history of aggressive behavior on Thales' part. On the contrary, reports indicated that he was described as balanced and respectful. In his own posts, he frequently wrote statements about his love for his children, the importance of family, and respect for his father-in-law's leadership. There were clear plans for the future. The candidacy for state representative seemed to be in the structuring phase, and some local political analysts believed that he could, in the long term, even become the natural successor of the family's political group. Days before the incident, Thales Alves Machado posted a video in which he introduced himself to the public. It was a simple, direct, almost informal recording. He spoke about his roots in the city, said he was proud to have been born and raised there, mentioned his children by name, and emphasized that he was building his family in the place he loved. The speech conveyed naturalness, like someone who was officially beginning to position himself as a pre-candidate. For many, that recording reinforced the sense of normality. There were no apparent signs of prior planning for what would happen later. In fact, part of the initial analyses dismissed the hypothesis of something carefully orchestrated, suggesting that the events were the result of an extreme and emotionally uncontrolled moment. On February 11th itself, hours before the tragedy, Thales posted a video alongside his two children. In the images, the three appear together, in an apparently calm atmosphere. In the caption, he wrote a message asking God to bless his children and declared the love he felt for them. The post, viewed today from another perspective, became one of the most debated points of the case, precisely because it contrasts so intensely with what would happen afterward. And it is from this contrast, between the public image of stability and the unexpected outcome, that the story begins to reveal even more complex layers. When night fell that same day, just hours after the last post beside his children, Thales returned to social media, but this time the tone was completely different. He published a lengthy text, almost like an open letter. It was not a loose sentence, nor a brief outburst. It was a structured account, filled with emotion, which many interpreted as a farewell. The content occupied practically an entire page. I summarized the main excerpts to make it easier to understand, but the impact of what was written there is impossible to ignore. In the message, he began by saying it was difficult to find words to start that text, but stated that everything in life has a breaking point, and that, according to him, that would be the end of his own story and also of his children's story. He mentioned the 15 years of marriage, claimed that he had always tried to preserve harmony at home and sought to maintain respect in the relationship, but declared that at that moment he had reached what he called the limit of the improbable. Thales wrote that Sarah had left Itumbiara and traveled to Sao Paulo to meet someone. According to his account, he had already noticed changes in his wife's behavior for a few days. He said he suspected something different, but never imagined the situation would reach the point that, in his view, it had reached. He implied betrayal, treating it as a definitive breach of trust. The most disturbing part of the letter was when he stated that he would leave, and that, unfortunately, the children would go with him. He addressed friends, acquaintances, and the community, saying he had never considered something like that before, that everything had happened in a moment of extreme intensity. He declared himself an emotional, intense person, and that he would not be able to live with what he had discovered. In the final paragraphs, he expressed respect for his father-in-law, apologized, and acknowledged that what he was doing would have no forgiveness. Closing the letter, he wrote a sentence asking God for forgiveness, saying he was acting with a shattered heart. Shortly afterward, that publication was removed from social media. It is not known exactly how long it remained online, but it was no longer available when authorities began their procedures. After that post, inside the family residence in the condominium where they lived, the act that shocked the country occurred. Thales attacked the lives of his two children and then his own. Miguel, the oldest, did not survive at the scene. Thales was also found lifeless inside the house. The younger brother was rescued and taken to the state hospital of Itumbiara, São Marcos, where he underwent emergency medical procedures. As soon as she was informed, Sarah immediately returned to the city. She went to the hospital accompanied by her father, Dion José de Araújo. Despite the efforts of the medical team, the child's condition was extremely critical, and he did not survive hours later. According to reports, people close to Thales were the first to arrive at the residence. They saw the letter posted on social media and realized something was wrong. They went to the condominium urgently, but when they arrived, the situation had already been carried out. There is no confirmation as to whether neighbors heard the gunshots and understood what was happening at that moment. What is known is that the military police isolated the area upon arrival and waited for the civil police to conduct the technical forensic examination, as protocol requires. The repercussion was immediate in Itumbiara and quickly surpassed the city's limits, gaining national attention. The investigations continue under confidentiality, but according to information released by news outlets, the main line being considered would be the discovery of the betrayal. According to those sources, weeks before the tragedy, Thales had found his wife's behavior unusual. Suspicious, he decided to hire a private investigator to monitor her routine. For about 15 days, nothing out of the ordinary was reportedly recorded. Sarah maintained her usual commitments: visits to family stores, meetings with relatives, and routine activities. The situation changed when she needed to travel to São Paulo to handle purchases related to the family's businesses. Faced with the suspicion that the alleged involvement might be linked to the trip, it was decided that the investigator would also follow her there. According to reports, at a certain moment, the investigator recorded images of Sarah alongside another man. Initially, information circulated that he was from São Paulo, but later it was reported that the man was also from the same region as her and had traveled during the same period. The videos that began circulating show a blonde woman, identified as Sarah, walking hand in hand with this man. In another recording, the two appear in a restaurant, showing closeness and exchanging gestures of affection. All the material was reportedly sent to Thales. Sources state that, upon watching the images, he was deeply shaken. For many, this would have been the emotional trigger that set the events in motion. It is important to emphasize that this information was released by news outlets, and there has not yet been official clarification from authorities confirming every point. Since the investigation is under confidentiality, some circumstances remain without public clarification. After the videos were released, part of the population began directing criticism and attacks towards Sarah on social media, holding her responsible for what happened. This type of reaction shows how cases like this awaken intense emotions and hasty judgments, even before formal conclusions from the investigations. In Itumbiara, the City Hall declared 3 days of official mourning. Public services were suspended, and classes in the municipal school system were ended early. The city came to a halt. Thales' wake took place at Funeraria Phoenix, while the boys were laid to rest at their grandfather's residence, the mayor. The burial occurred the same day, under strong commotion. People close to the family became ill during the ceremony, such was the emotional tension. The governor of Goiás, Ronaldo Caiado, and the First Lady, Gracinha Caiado, were in the city to offer solidarity. Escola Gabarito published a note of condolence deeply lamenting Miguel's loss, highlighting the affection he had for classmates and teachers. What remains is a sequence of difficult questions to answer. How can a seemingly structured public life collapse within a matter of hours? To what extent can emotional factors, political pressure, social exposure, and personal conflicts accumulate silently? None of this justifies what happened, but it helps to understand that tragedies of this kind are rarely born from a single isolated factor. Two children who bore no responsibility for adult conflicts were the greatest victims of this story. A mother lost both children on the same day. A grandfather lost his grandsons. An entire city was impacted. Cases like this leave deep marks because they expose the most fragile side of the human being, when decisions made in minutes generate irreversible consequences. If you want to follow complete analyses like this, with context, details, and responsibility in reporting, make sure to show your support here on the channel. There is another video appearing on your screen right now that complements this discussion and helps to understand how situations of emotional pressure can evolve in unexpected ways. Watch until the end, because that greatly strengthens the channel and allows more in-depth content like this to continue being produced.